It is August the 29th, 6:30 p.m. And we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Seguin Independent School District has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043 of the Texas Government Code. And we do have a quorum. Item 1B, we'll start with the pledges to the United States flag and Texas flags, followed by a moment of silence. Denise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We'll have a moment of silence, and I would ask that you keep Ruben Calderon and his family in the prayers. So now we'll move on to item 1C, superintendent announcements.
Good evening, Matador Nation. The month of August has proven to be a mixture of experiences and emotions for Seguin ISD. We welcomed our teachers back on August the 2nd, and based on feedback, the majority of our 1,100 employees experienced a wonderful convocation event on August the 11th. Our students reported back to school on August 14th, and overall the first week of school was one of the smoothest that I have experienced in Seguin ISD and in my career. Several of our annual back-to-school events occurred or will take place in the near future, including Meet the Teacher Night, Meet the Matadors, our first home football game this Saturday, and the Matador Family Back-to-School Bash slated for September 8th at Seguin High School. Yet, as we all know, last Tuesday we experienced a major issue on a school bus in which the safety of our students and staff was jeopardized. We are extremely fortunate that individuals on school bus 99 were able to walk off the school bus without any injuries. As I mentioned during a news conference we hosted that afternoon, I have discussed the idea of expanding our clear backpack policy with my administrative team. Moving forward, we are phasing in a clear backpack policy for our elementary school students. Parents who wish to purchase a clear backpack for their elementary student are encouraged to do so. We are in the process of ordering clear backpacks to provide to those families who may be experiencing financial hardships. We realize that it will take time to phase in this new policy, especially since we have already started the school year. The expectation is that all of our elementary and pre-kindergarten students who use a backpack will have a clear one by the start of the second semester in January. Information will be sent out to parents on this new policy along with details on how the district will distribute clear backpacks to our elementary school students. A big thank you goes out to the Jefferson Elementary School administration and office staff for assisting parents in fielding phone calls last Tuesday. The Seguin Police Department was on site to handle the situation in a calm and professional manner. Our transportation department employees ensured that every bus rider was accounted for that day. We are fortunate that a 10-year Seguin ISD employee was driving the bus that day. Having started as a bus driver in 2013, he transferred to the maintenance department in 2014 to join the grounds crew. However, since he had previous experience as a mechanic shop supervisor, he jumped on the chance to return to transportation when a shop position opened up in 2015. In 2018, he became a certified behind-the-wheel trainer and a regular bus driver. He realized that his calling is in the shop, and he started back as a technician in May of 2022. As fate would have it, our current bus driver shortage had this employee behind the wheel of bus 99 last Tuesday morning. Thanks to his swift reaction, he was able to address the situation to ensure the safety of the 37 students who were on board of bus 99. It is a pleasure to present the the August Apple Award to our very own Eric Alexander.
Once again, a big thank you from the board. We'll move on to item number 1D, which is board member reports. And we'll start off with Cindy Jimenez.
Excuse me, good evening. I did spend quite a bit of time out of the state this last month, but I did attend one of our special meetings virtually, and I also took part in some virtual trainings, one of which was superintendent evaluation, so I'm ready. And, another was on public school finance, and I hadn't looked at that one in quite a few years, and boy is it complicated. So my hat is off to the two of you, because there are so many categories of students and so many programs, and it's just phenomenal. I think I wish the public knew more about it, all the work that you do and all the rules, I guess, that we have in place from the state and the federal government. So thank you very much.
I got to go to some of the events before school started, and as always, one of my favorites was convocation, and just to see everyone so excited to get the year started, and then to visit all the campuses and see how excited they were to get their year started. It was a very good start to the school year.
Nothing to report.
Several things that I did this past month, but I guess one of the highlights for me was getting to actually MC Meet the Mats, and it was fantastic, and I got to introduce Dr. Vahil to everyone, and she gave some remarks and taught everyone some traditions from our Matador family, so that was really fun for me.
I have nothing to report except that I have allergies.
And I just have, once again, attended several meetings, but the highlight was the convocation, of course. Next year I'm going to bring a pickle jar, leave it open, and take it to work so I can get all that excitement and all that energy at work. It really keep me. So now we'll move on to item 2, audience with the board. Seguin Independent Board of Trustees designates a time for audience participation at the beginning of each meeting to hear persons who desire to make comments in accordance with board policy BED local. Those wishing to speak shall sign up before the meeting begins, stating the concern or noting the agenda items they wish to address. Audience participation is limited to 5 minutes. The board shall not deliberate any subject that is not on the posted agenda. And we do have 3 individuals, and I will call the names out and they can come up front. First one is Molly Percy, and the topic is school safety. And Trustee Jenkins will be giving the time.
Just push the red button.
My name is Molly Bursey, and I'm speaking to you this evening as the mother of a middle schooler, a gun owner, a neighbor, and as the legislative lead for the Texas chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Moms Demand Action is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots organization dedicated to gun violence prevention. On behalf of our chapter, I extend our solidarity and sincere distress following the discharge of a gun on an elementary school bus 1 week ago today. I understand that as school board trustees, the safety and security of our kids is one of, if not the top priority. Each of you worked hard to obtain your seat in order to represent the best interests of Seguin students. It is with this mutual understanding that I offer some solutions that I'm hopeful will help restore and further that sense of safety and security. With the passage of HB 3 this past session, the Texas legislature enacted a new requirement that every public school have an armed individual on campus. Though the new law imposes a large cost to schools, legislators only increased the school safety allotment by 28 cents. Because of this de facto unfunded mandate, many districts have or are now considering arming school staff as an alternative method of meeting the requirement. As a veteran middle school teacher of 12 years, I can tell you that this is a frightening and dangerous idea. But please don't take my word for it. Arming teachers is opposed by the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, the National Association of School Resource Officers, and the President and Executive Director of the Major Cities Chiefs Association. The notion that an armed teacher with minimal training requirements is equivalent to a law enforcement officer is a myth. Even the presence of highly trained SROs, or school resource officers, in schools is not shown to reduce deaths or injuries in school shootings. In fact, one study found that the rate of death in U.S. school shootings from 1980 to 2019 was nearly 3 times greater in schools with armed guards than those without. I urge each of you who hold a position on this board of trustees not to implement the Guardian or Marshal program. Like over-policing in our schools, measures that assume criminality in all of our students, such as metal detectors and clear or mesh backpacks, are not only impractical and imperfect, overly relying on hardening our schools contributes to a culture of fear and mistrust. There is only so far we can take these measures before resorting to jumpsuits, pat-downs, and steel bars. We already train our children in lockdowns, a term that comes from our prisons. Instead of resorting to hardening measures, what are the solutions to preventing gun violence in school grounds? Which of those solutions are within the purview of this body? Securely storing guns is an essential way to keep kids safe. Today, gun violence is the #1 killer of children and teens in America. Our kids are dying at an ever-increasing rate because of unsupervised access to guns. House Bill 3 requires schools provide education to parents about the secure storage of firearms. I am unaware whether or not the TEA has issued guidance to our districts on implementing this provision.
1 minute, Ms. Person.
Okay, I urge you to demand that Mike Morath and the TEA set standards for this important piece of HB 3 now. Please use your position to implement robust, secure storage education for all caregivers in your district. Make this a priority here in Seguin. Lead by example. Lean on TEA to issue guidance on secure storage, Say no to increasing the burden on our overworked and dedicated teachers by giving them a gun and telling them they're now sharpshooters. Invest no longer in the security theater that sends us further down the path of changing our beloved schools into prisons. Texas has a long and cherished history as a state that prides itself on responsible gun ownership. Help us restore that tradition by doing what educators do best. Educate and implement proven policies to reduce gun violence on school grounds and at home.
Thank you. The next individual is Jan Ashcraft, and the topic is Be Smart, Save Gun Storage.
Hello, my name is Jan Ashcraft. I am a volunteer with the Be Smart program here in Comal and Guadalupe County. I am a mother, a grandmother, and a retired school teacher, preschool teacher. But tonight I'm here to speak as a volunteer with Be Smart, Secure Gun Storage Education Campaign. We are a national nonprofit program that provides free resources to educate parents, caregivers, and all adults on how to protect our children from gun violence by practicing secure gun storage. Our goal is safety, and politics and policy are not part of our program. First, I'm going to share some sobering facts with you. Firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens in America and in Texas. 4.6 million children in the United States live in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. Every year, 350 children in America under the age of 18 gain access to a firearm and unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. So far in 2023, there have been at least 240 unintentional shootings by children in the United States. 25 of those have occurred here in Texas. Additionally, more than 700 children living in America die by gun suicide every year, and secure storage can play a crucial role in preventing those deaths. In the context of school safety, studies of school-based gun violence all point to the same significant point of intervention: addressing students' unauthorized access to guns in the home. A Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center of Study targeted school violence incidences from 2008 to 2017. They found that 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from the home of a parent or a close relative. So what does it mean to be smart? SMART is an acronym with each letter standing for something that we as adults, both gun owners and non-gun owners alike, can do to protect our children. S stands for secure, and that means securing all firearms in your homes and vehicles. It is important to remember that hiding a gun is not considered secure storage. Kids can find their Christmas presents, they can find the guns. M is for model responsible behavior around firearms. That kind of goes without saying. A is my favorite out of the letters, and it is ask about the presence of an unsecured firearm in other homes. When your child goes for a play date, just because you securely store your firearms does not mean that someone else in a home where they visit might be doing the same thing. So asking and having that conversation with others. R is to recognize the role that firearms play in suicide. Someone that does attempt suicide with a firearm is more likely to be successful than if they tried another method. And T is to tell your peers to be smart. Most importantly, it is always the adult's responsibility to prevent unsupervised access to firearms by children. Educating our children about the dangers of firearms is, yes, very important. However, we can't rely on young minds to make the safe choice in every circumstance. Children are curious. Simply telling them not to touch a gun is not enough. An analysis by Everytown for Gun Safety of over 2,800 unintentional shootings by children between 2015 and 2022 found that the two age groups most likely to unintentionally shoot themselves or others are high schoolers between the ages of 14 and 17, and that is followed by preschoolers. age 5 and younger. Nearly 1 in every 3 unintentional shooters were preschoolers.
1 minute, Ms. Ashcraft.
Many Texans may not know that making a firearm accessible to a child is a crime in our state. Per Penal Code Section 4613, a person commits an offense if a child gains access to a readily dischargeable firearm and the person with criminal negligence failed to secure the firearm or left the firearm in a place to which the person knew or should have known that the child could have gained access. As you know, House Bill 3, recently passed by the legislature, requires school districts to provide parents and guardians with critical information on both Penal Code 4613 and the importance of safe gun storage. Our B-Smart team is available to assist you in fulfilling this requirement. While we are not aware of any guidance being issued by the state on this new statute yet, we are available to help you proactively address this matter. Several districts across the state have already chosen to do so. Districts in Austin, Houston, Dallas, Katy, Frisco, Fort Bend County, McKinney, Pearland, and Wimberley recognize how critical secure gun storage is in the effort to protect all of our children from gun violence, both at school and at home.
Thank you, Ms.
I have some printed resources to leave with you, and thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Ashcroft. And the next individual is Donna Mongram, and the topic is the parent of bus 99, fire safety.
The seat itself and the school bus are designed in such a fashion there is seal under the upholstery. The presence of that seal might have saved the lives of at least one student sitting in the seat. My name is Donna Mangrum, and my daughter Charlie was that one student saved by a bit of seal. I am here tonight to present an education initiative to the board to help prevent an incident like what happened last week. Since the massacre at Robb Elementary, I have had recurrent nightmares of having to call my loved ones to tell them, it's Charlie's school. 2 weeks ago, the pre-K program Charlie attended 3 years ago found a firearm in a child's backpack. I was immediately taken to my nightmare. She didn't attend anymore, but it was my daughter's school. Little did I know that exactly 1 week later, Charlie would be sharing fruit roll-ups with her friend on the bus while a bullet discharged into the back of her seat. It's no longer too close to home. It's in my home, and we will forever live with the aftermath of this trauma. I am aware that we are at an impasse regarding common sense gun reform. Many in this country believe that there's no price too high to ensure the right to bear arms, while others believe that those rights do not supersede a child's right to life. I will not mince my words to say I am firmly in the latter camp, but personal political ideologies don't matter. We've been having this argument for decades, and the only thing that changes is the amount of bloodshed. At this point, we have to cross the aisle and do whatever we can for our kids' safety. Obviously, we can discuss clear backpacks, metal detectors, and even no backpacks. But perhaps the most effective idea is education. Some kids know nothing about firearms, except that they are dangerous. Others have been handling guns since they could walk, while others fall somewhere in the middle. They know just enough to be a danger. I am not here to criticize parents for how they choose to approach this topic, but it is not enough, as every day there are children who accidentally shoot their friends and family. We have been teaching children how to not start forest fires since the 40s. We spend a week each year convincing children not to take drugs from kids in bathrooms, and I'd like to note I've never had a random person offer me drugs in my life. We teach children not to drink and drive. And in these initiatives, we show them pictures of car accidents and are open about the consequences. It's high time we teach our children what can happen when faced with a friend who wants to show off their dad's cool pistol. If our society believes that they are old enough to be using their friends' dead bodies to protect themselves, then they are old enough to see the devastating effects guns can have in an instant. Public school is intended to be the great equalizer. As I pointed out, our children all have very different experiences with firearms. With an education initiative, they can be taught how to calmly and safely remove themselves and anyone else from the scenario. And I will be the first to volunteer to work with anyone to make this happen. This does not have to be presented as guns are bad. We don't tell children that knives and matches are bad. We tell them that they should only be used under safe adult supervision. This can be a neutral but firm message that guns are powerful weapons that have devastating impact, and as such, they should be only handled under parental supervision. This puts the choice back on the parents for how they want to educate while opening important lines of communication. Most importantly, it doesn't shelter children from the potential consequences. Additionally, the See Something, Say Something initiatives from recent years need to be expanded to be see something, hear something, say something. Kids are literal. Both my daughter and nephew heard conversations on the bus that morning regarding firearms, but since they didn't see anything, they didn't say anything. As a society, we have failed our children by not looking at ways to cross the aisle while those in power fight it out in Washington. Our children will be grown before there's any progress made in legislation, but we have opportunities to educate now. I do not believe that this child would have brought a gun to school knowing the likelihood that he could have accidentally shot himself or a classmate. Nor do I believe that the child talking to him would have been so calm sitting there. In my maelstrom of emotions, not only am I grateful that my daughter did not become a casualty, I am thankful that this boy will not live their life having taken the life of another. I don't want that to be the reality for any child. I don't know about the rest of you, but at this point, I think it's more important to teach kids how to not accidentally shoot their friends than to teach them how to not start forest fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Now we'll move to item number 3, which is a closed session. Board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following section of the Texas Open Meeting Act. 3A, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.074, 551.129, consultation with legal counsel, including possible telephone consultations with legal counsel as necessary, to address legal concerns, implications, and answer any legal questions regarding posted agenda items. A1, emergency operation and safety protocols. A2, safety and security audit results. 3B, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, discuss personnel matters including appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline or dismissal of employee or employees. 3C, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072, discuss the sale, purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 3D, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultations with legal counsel regarding legal issues related to Texas Education Code 37.0814 and security matters. 3E, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.076 and 551.089, deliberate the deployment for specific occasions for implementation of security personnel, critical infrastructure, or security devices. 3E, pursuant to the Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with legal counsel regarding Kingsbury ISD, ETAL versus Mora. It is 6:59, and we will now close the open meeting and convene into closed. It is 9:09, and we're going to reconvene to our open meeting. Item 4A, no action. Item 4B, possible discussion and action on joining Kingsville ISD and Morat.
Mr. President, I move that Seguin ISD join Kingsville ISD et al. Versus Morat.
I want to second that motion.
Motion has been made by Cindy Jimenez and seconded by Mr. Jenkins. For item 4B, to pursue action on joining Kingsville ISD versus Morat. Any discussions? Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed, 6-0.
Board of Trustees, I appreciate your support on this effort. I just want to share with any of those who are listening that it's not fair to change the rules of a game after the game has been played. It's like going and telling Alamo Heights that Seguin won the game because the rules have changed. And it's an injustice to our schools, and I truly believe it's an effort to show that public schools are failing in an effort to push vouchers. Our teachers and our students worked hard this past school year. We have all in this room had an opportunity to see our teachers and students in action, and we have made significant progress. If you use the accountability system from 2022 to measure our students' performance in 2023, we would be a high C. Versus using the new rules that were made after the game was played, after testing, we are looking at a high D. That's a significant difference when we all know and realize that we've made huge progress, especially at the high school and especially in CCMR. And it's unfortunate that that measure alone went up 47% because we would be a B in CCMR, but with the new measure, in spite of all of the progress that we've made in CCMR, we're looking at a D. So all of that work in progress with new pathways, more students graduating with an industry-based certification, more students participating in advanced courses, we're being penalized. That's not fair to our kids, and that's not fair to our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. So now we'll move on to item 5, consent agenda items. Considering possible approval as applicable. Policy B, local, states that the consent agenda shall include items of routine and or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion unless a board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote as applicable. 5A, approval of board minutes of special meeting July 12, 2023, regular meeting July 18, 2023, board workshop August 9, 2023, and special meeting August 15, 2023. 5B, approval of tax collection reports for June 2023. 5C, approval of tax collection reports for July 2023. 5D, approval of proposed budget amendments and financial statements for July 2023. 5E, approval of district-wide vehicle maintenance, parts and services, RFP 21-01. 5F, approval of district-wide vehicle maintenance, parts and services, RFP 24-01. 5G, approval of district-wide special education services, RFP 21-05. 5H, approval of district-wide special education services, RFP 24-05. 5I, approval of district-wide plumbing system maintenance, equipment, parts and services, RFP 24-02. 5J, approval of district-wide HVAC system maintenance, equipment, parts and services, RFP 24-03. 5K, approval of district-wide facilities maintenance, electrical equipment, parts and services, RFP 2404. 5L, approval of district-wide educational consulting services, RFP 24-06. 5M, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the Allied States Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $102,300. 5N, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the Buy Board Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $248,039. 5O, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the Choice Partners Purchasing Cooperative for a total of $247,500. 5P, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the Central Texas Purchasing Alliance Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $107,421. 5Q, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the DIR Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $470,122. 5R, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the Omnia Partners Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $354,574. 5S, consideration and possible approval of purchases through Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $191,341. 5T, consideration and possible approval of purchases through the TIPS Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $108,235. 5U, extracurricular activity listing for 2023-2024. 5V, county extension agents as adjunct staff members. 5W, information regarding Seguin ISD purchase of a math framework and technical assistance to the Strong Foundations Planning Grant through Bellwether Education Partners Incorporated. 5X, personnel information, professional employees. 5Y, acknowledge Public Information Act request, July-August 2023. Does any
Mr.
board-
President, I move for approval of all of these consent agenda items.
Motion has been made by Linda Duncan to approve consent items 5A through Y.
I'll second that.
Second by Cindy Jimenez. Any discussions? Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. So now we'll move on to the action items. 6A, consideration and possible approval of a memorandum of understanding with Texas Workforce Housing Foundation to support workforce housing for Seguin ISD employees. The presenter is Perla Romero.
Good evening, President Guerra, Dr. Gutierrez, and members of the board. This action agenda item for approval of the MOU with the Texas Working Housing Foundation will be presented by Mr. Rudy Mejia. He is a consultant with the Texas Workforce Housing Foundation.
Good evening, President Guerra, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Gutierrez. What a pleasure it is tonight to be with you. For the record, my name is Rudy Mejia, Financial Advisor for the Texas Workforce Housing Foundation, and I'm accompanied by Tim Alcott, who's of counsel to the foundation. In the interest of time, I know the board has already seen this presentation before, and so we'd like to maybe ask if there are any questions regarding the program prior to us maybe going through the presentation again. If we recall, this is an opportunity to partner with the Texas Workforce Housing Foundation to locate or acquire an existing property, an apartment complex, basically to offer affordable housing to teachers and staff within the district. If there are no apartment complexes available for purchase, then we will look at doing a ground-up development. which at this current time, it's looking like that will be the case. It does take a little bit of time for the foundation to go out and survey properties and conduct site surveys and site studies. But, you know, this is kind of the first step, partnering with the Workforce Housing Foundation to task us to go out and look for these opportunities on behalf of your district staff.
Any board members have any questions? Yeah, we have reviewed the presentation before, and it'll be posted also for the public. Once again, thank you. I believe Round Rock and
Currently, right now, the program is in place at Round Rock ISD. There's 4 apartment complexes there, and Pflugerville ISD also has this program.
do we hear a motion to approve item 6A?
Mr. President, I move to approve item 6A.
Motion has been made by Farrell Jenkins and second by Linda Duncan to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Texas Workforce Housing Foundation to support workforce housing for Seguin ISD employees. Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
And now we're going to skip to item K. We're going to move it up front. And item K is approval of retention stipend for existing math instructors at Seguin High School. And Dr. Vigil and Ms. Perez will do the presentation.
Good evening, Dr. Gutierrez, President Guerra, and Board of Trustees. Thank you for moving us up on the agenda. We appreciate it. We're coming to you this evening. I have here our Associate Principal of Instruction, Mrs. Ferris, and our Associate Principal of Operations, Dr. Saldana, and of course, Dr. Vigil. We'd like to visit with you about the approval of retention stipend for existing math instructors, and we just want to take you through the process that we've been engaged in as a leadership team and also with our math department to arrive at the proposal we have today. So I'm sure you're aware that across the nation there is a severe shortage of educators. I think at the last article I read, we were short about 50,000 educators. Math educators are one of the critical needs area within that number. And we are experiencing that lack of a candidate pool in math specifically. In the summer, we had 7 vacancies, and towards the end of June and beginning of July, we started planning to resolve how we were going to handle that because we knew we needed educators in front of students, the most well-qualified candidates. And so Dr. Ferris is going to take us through some of these bullet points right here that talk about how we arrived at our plan to address the 7 vacancies that existed.
Good evening. So as we were trying to just resolve the issues of not having teachers in those positions, we really thought that we should get the current teachers together to see what their thoughts were. We wanted their input to make sure that we just had the buy-in from all of them because there were so many different options available. And so when we talked to them, they helped to come up with the solutions for what we could do to help support our students. And so we did meet with them over the summer. They decided that 3 of them decided that they would take on the EOC, the Algebra 1 math course, just to make sure that we gave the best to our students as far as that goes, to make sure that we do well to help keep up our scores. We provided teachers with summer planning. That was one of the things that they requested, was that they needed some time. They needed time with the new resource for Carnegie to be able to look at the resource, learn the resource, plan, and it just takes time to get it all together. So they wanted time to start over the summer so that way they started the year prepared. We also separated the department lead with the instructional coaches position because that position was not going to continue after this year. And so if we took one of our teachers and grew them as a teacher leader, then we would be able to use them for several years after that if they were to come and become a math student. We also hired several long-term subs, so we have 3 long-term subs right now, one in the geometry position, an algebra position, and a math models position. And I do want to say they have done really great this year to support our kids and have just gone above and beyond just to do whatever is needed. So they are being supported through PLCs. They are also helping. They're coming before school. They're staying after school to plan, to do grades, to input grades, to do whatever is needed to make sure that we are providing, again, the best instruction for our students. And they get support from myself. They get support from our district and our district math coordinator, and from the other teachers as well during the PLCs. And then we are going to plan to continue to just recruit in December. For looking at our college graduates in December to see who else we can recruit.
So as a result of all of that, we had to take a look at some adjustments in our master schedule. And what that's done is we have a number of cases where we have an increase in class sizes. And so if you take a look at your presentation, you'll see that we've broken that down to an average class size by teacher. As Mrs. Ferris mentioned, in Algebra 1, we have 3 seasoned teachers in there, Mrs. Brenya, Mrs. Pearson, and Ms. Goodman. And you'll see that all of their classes have an average class size of over 25 students. You'll see that trend in our upper math classes as well, geometry, Algebra 2. Math models is the only exception to that. I believe that average class size is 23. And we have a long-term sub in there. So it's appropriate that that class size is lower, given that that's not someone who is permanently with us or seasoned veteran in that content area. You'll also see that there's a column there that indicates the support that's provided to each particular content-specific topic. So in Algebra 1, we're in year 2 of Carnegie implementation. We are receiving 12 days of coaching this year from a Carnegie coach in concert with Dr. Kober's guidance and facilitation. She actually shared a plan with us this year that targets how time will be spent with folks for planning. You'll see the same thing in Algebra 2. Now this is year 1 for Algebra 2, and this is also year 1 for geometry, so there is a lot of front loading and expedited learning that needs to occur from our educators, because that's a whole new way of thinking about how math is taught, how students are learning that content, and how it's executed seamlessly so that students are gaining the most from that, and that our teachers are getting the support they need in that learning. And we'll segue into the next slide.
President Guerra, Dr. Gutierrez, and board members, this is where I take over now and talk about the actual stipends. And the way that this came about was a lot of conversation between Ms. Perez and Ms. Vera, and Ms. Moreno joined the conversation so that we could set some amounts as you see them presented here. They came up with a tiered system, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 describes the 1 or 2 class preps. They are classes exceeding 25. These level 1 teachers are not teaching an EOC class. The second level is a substitute teacher, additional duties of planning, and grading outside paid business hours. And I can tell you, because I'm married to one, he's doing a lot of work. And he's happy to do this, and well supported by the high school. Level 3, these are the teachers who are teaching our EOC subject, Algebra 1. Obviously it's a critical need. They are doing additional planning and activity creation for the substitutes. So they're supporting substitutes, and their classes do exceed 25. So level 1, we are proposing a $3,000 stipend, level 2 a $5,000 stipend, and level 3 an $8,000 stipend. The retention is to be paid in 2 installments at the end of the first semester and the end of the second semester. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question that was posed to me, and I didn't know how to answer it, and I apologize, I didn't have the time to pose this question before the meeting, but are there any other EOC areas, English, any of those that also might benefit? I mean, anyone would benefit from a stipend, but is it not as dire as it is for the math department? I'll let Ms. Bettis speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Duncan. If you ask me, every educator deserves a stipend, right? Because it's hard to come by quality candidates. Right now, the applicant pool for math is the one that we're experiencing the most concern about because there just aren't applicants. And looking back at our frontline application system, we stopped getting applicants late June, early July. 1 or 2 would pop in, but they were not candidates that were suited for our high school. So right now, we have candidates in English, we have them in U.S. history, and we have them in biology. So we're good there. However, that's for this school year. We don't know what next school year will look like.
And what are those class sizes like for the other EOC areas?
There, I'd have to look and see. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. We can run those numbers for you and get them to you. But I will tell you that we have a number of classes that are large, and our teachers have been very gracious in accommodating those students and making sure they have what they need to be successful.
But again, the need is not as dire as it is for the math department.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
I have a quick math question.
I can't promise that I can answer it, but
It's pretty simple. So there's 7 vacancies in math. Is that secondary, is that just high school, or is it also including the middle schools?
no, there were 7 at the start of this, well, prior to the start of the school year. We've managed to shrink that down to 3.
Because you have the 4 subs?
Yes.
Okay.
And we had some late hires. Like, as an example, Miss Herrera is one of our teachers. She graduated on a Saturday. We brought her on board on a Monday. And so our plan is to take a look at December graduates in surrounding areas and of course the state of Texas and see if we can't recruit and hire a quality candidates to fill those remaining vacancies. We have some long-term subs right now that we're considering, so this is a really great interview time for them and for us to see if they'll be great in a long-term fit.
And will we be able to reduce those class sizes at that time?
Not right now, we won't. We're still missing, we have over 700 freshmen. I'm not sure if the board is aware of that. Like, our numbers are really large in that class, so that's what's pushing up those algebra classes. And we wanted to put them with seasoned educators. So really, if we wanted to reduce class sizes, we need to bring on more educators. We need more allotments, right?
That's what I meant.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
we brought more people in, then
Yes.
we'd relook at the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is kind of obvious. I just wanted it stated. Thank you very much.
Yes, we always welcome more FTEs and more quality candidates.
Can you tell us how many level 1, level 2, and level 3 teachers there are that would be getting these stipends?
In level 3, we have 3 teachers. In level 2, substitute teachers, we have 3. And level 1, that would be our remaining 5 teachers.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Any more questions, board? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So do I hear a motion to approve item 6K, which is approval of retention stipends for existing math instructors at Seguin High School?
I move to approve.
Motion has been made by Denise and second by Mr. Amaloa. Any discussions?
Thank you, high school team, for being here to present your plan. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 7:30.
Sorry to keep you so late.
Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passed 6-0. Move on to item 6C, consideration and approval of School Health Advisory Council Annual Report, CHAC Goals and Committee Members. Mr. Pete Silvas will present.
Yeah. Sorry, I could have queued myself up and saved some time. Good evening. Good to see you, President Guerra, Dr. Gutierrez, board members. I'm here tonight on behalf of the SHAC, the School Health Advisory Council. I have 2 items for your consideration and possible approval. The first being a roster of potential members. And so you all will recall, we do this on an annual basis. So you have the opportunity to appoint members. The SHAC bylaws are written to allow membership of between 11 and 21 members. So you have a roster with 20 names on it. And we're excited by many new names that you can see noted. I tried to provide you evidence of the new members there by the position. So you can see there are 6 new parents, and there are 2 new staff, and 1 new community member that is seeking potential appointment. So that is one action item. And then the second action item is just the annual report. And the annual report, you are to be provided a written annual report, and I'll touch some high points. So there are 4 ongoing goals of the SHAC. The first is to promote student nutrition. Second is to increase opportunities and access for physical activity for all students, staff, and community. Third is to increase parental and community involvement to include support of coordinated school health and the SHAC. And the fourth is to educate the whole child with health and wellness at the center of academic achievement. Most of the work that the SHAC focused on this year was around House Bill 1525 and Senate Bill 9 requirements. You'll recall last summer, through board resolution, you charged the SHAC to really review and provide recommendation on curriculum. And so that was what the year was spent on the SHAC. So I know many of the members of the SHAC look forward to a new year. Starting our first SHAC meeting will be September 13th, and we can dive into some of those other ongoing goals that we have and really provide opportunities for those parents to really get a feel for their school system. It's really a great way to dip your foot into the pool of working to support the school system by participation in the SHAC. And so we look forward to really tapping into their talents. So are there any questions that I can answer related to those 2 potential items for your approval tonight? I do want to, I should have highlighted Mark Dibble has been the chair of the SHAC for a few years now, and we're thankful for his leadership. Mark has done a great job for us and has agreed to continue in that role, so very thankful to him.
I have a quick question,
Yes.
maybe way out in left field.
Okay.
But this evening we heard from some people about some of the gun violence and the SMART program. Would something like this come under SHAC?
Certainly could.
Maybe we could take a look at it in the future?
It certainly could, yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious, thank you.
That'd be very appropriate.
Well, thank you, Pete. Thanks to the outgoing members and the incoming members.
Thank you.
I know it's a very difficult job to go through the SHAC committee and being in touch with the community with everything else going on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I move to approve item 6C.
Motion is made by Cindy Menace. Do I hear a second? Motion has been made for consideration and approval of School Health Advisory Council annual report and SAC goals and committee members list. Are there any discussions? Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. And I accidentally skipped an action item. Let's go back to Ms. Nikki Bidding, 6B, which is consideration and take possible action to adopt resolution regarding Texas Education Code Section 37-0814. Ms. Bidding will do the presentation.
Good evening, President Guerra, Dr. Gutierrez, Board of Trustees. This evening, I'd like to discuss with you this particular consideration. The Seguin ISD and the Board of Trustees were committed to the safety and security of all students and staff. The Texas Education Code 37.0814 requires an armed security officer at each campus during regular school hours by September 1st. And each armed security officer must be a school district peace officer, school resource officer, or a commissioned peace officer employed as security. I'd like you to consider and take possible action to adopt a resolution for a good cause exemption for districts that are not able to provide a commissioned officer at every campus during the regular school hours. due to the availability of lack of funds or qualified commissioned peace officers. And thus it allows school districts to develop an alternate standard for compliance. The alternate standard could be the combination of Seguin PD, Guadalupe County Sheriff's Office, private security firms, or the Guardian or Marshal program.
Mr. President, I move to adopt the resolution regarding Texas Education Code Section 37.0814.
Motion has been made to approve item 6B by Liz Duncan, second by Ben Amador. Any more discussions? Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion passed 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Biggs. Now we're going to move to item 6D, 2023-2024 Student Code of Conduct. Dr. Vicky will give the presentation.
Good evening once again. It's time for the updates on the Student Code of Conduct. There were minimal changes considering that we had a legislative session that ended. And so I'll just go over the very minimal changes. They're really abbreviation changes. Every time you see Campus Behavior Coordinator in the Student Code of Conduct, now that will be replaced with CBC. School Resource Officer will be SRO. And I neglected to leave off one other abbreviation. In-school suspension is now ISS, is referred to as ISS in the Student Code of Conduct. On the next slide, I just wanted to remind everyone that possession of telecommunications or other electronic devices is found in the Student Code of Conduct, and you know that we are trying very hard, especially at the high school, to enforce everything with the telecommunications aspect. And so it does say in the Student Code of Conduct that students shall not use a telecommunication device, including a cellular telephone or other electronic device, in violation of district and campus rules. The next slide talks about an addition, clarification for what happens when DAEP is at capacity. And so it talked about two different instances. If a student is placed at DAEP for conduct related to marijuana, THC, and e-cigarette, alcohol, or abusable volatile chemical, the student shall be placed in ISS and then transferred to DAEP for the remainder of the period if the space becomes available. So this is what happens. DAEP is full. We have a student who has incurred one of these infractions, then they will be placed in ISS because there's no room at DAEP. The second bullet discusses if DAEP is at capacity at the time that a student has engaged in violent conduct, then a student who is in DAEP for the previously mentioned infractions can be moved to ISS so that that student can move into DAEP. So this is how we're kind of moving around and using ISS as an option for students with who have had infractions as discussed in the first bullet. With an automatic placement for vape usage, they had to consider what's going to happen if there's a lot of students and DAEP is full. So that's what that is addressing. The last one is additions to the definition of harassment.
And so this had, clearly defined, causing the telephone of another to ring repeatedly or make repeated telephone communications anonymously or in a manner reasonably like to harass, annoy, alarm, abuse, torment, embarrass, or offend another. Make a telephone call and intentionally failing to hang up or disengage the connection. Knowingly permitting a telephone under the person's control to be used by another to commit an offense under this section. So it's just additional definitions that are added to the term harassment found in the glossary of the Student Code of Conduct. Those are really the highlights of the changes, additions, and changes to the Student Code of Conduct this year. Yes, ma'am.
Y'all are gonna miss me. With the telephones, so teachers can allow them to use the phones in the classroom, correct?
They can use them for
Academic
instructional,
reasons.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And how does the administration monitor that? Is it just walkthroughs or?
It's walkthroughs.
Okay. Do we already have vape sensors in place? I know that we, in that long consent agenda list, there were purchasing of vape sensors. Do we have some in place already?
There are some in place.
They're all in place? Some are in place. Previously been in place since January.
Some have been in place in spring and others are on order or on order still.
And is that on all of the campuses, or will they be at all the campuses, elementary, secondary?
Thought we focused on secondary.
Right now.
Secondary right now.
Secondary.
Somebody just needs to remind me, what is the DAEP capacity? How many students is that? Oh, sorry. I was just wondering, I don't know, have we ever been at capacity during your tenure here? I can't see Ms. Bidding, so.
Yes, ma'am.
We have been,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
All right.
We have been at capacity, and a lot of times that's in the late spring.
Mhm.
The capacity at the DAEP is
Right now we're holding 60.
60.
And then the last question, was this student code of conduct, has it been provided to the parents and the students? Do they get it at the beginning of the year, or is this something that you're waiting on us to approve before they get it?
We're waiting on you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is there a policy that addresses cell phone use by teachers and administrators?
In the handbook, is there something that addresses cell phones
Yes.
of teachers in the handbook?
Yes, in the employee handbook.
We can get that wording to you.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So the mandatory replacement at the DAEP, the ISS, is, we're compliant with that rule by placing people in ISS?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was there a mandatory amount of time for that placement in the law, or do we just follow our own?
Yes, we follow our own consequences, yes, and guidelines.
Thank you.
And that will probably be case by case.
It is case by case, but you'll start to see a generalization of the same infractions.
Any further questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we hear a motion to approve 6D?
I make a motion to approve the 23-24 student code of conduct.
Motion has been made by Cindy Jimenez. Do we hear a second? Second by Ben Amador. Any discussions? Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Item 6E, consideration and approval of a resolution by the Board of Trustees of the Seguin Independent School District providing for the deficits and calling for redemptions of certain currently outstanding district obligations, directing the board secretary or a designee thereof to effectuate the redemptions, of these obligations, authorizing the execution of an escrow agreement, delegating to certain district officials and staff the authority to effectuate matters herein resolved and other matters in connection therewith.
Good evening again. We are asking the board to consider and approve for defeasance, and defeasance is just another way of saying of paying off debt early. Since 2022, we have been able to pay $6.5 million towards defeasance, which has generated interest savings in the amount of $4.3 million. What this resolution will do is it will allow us to make a payment in spring of 2024 for $3.5 million or more, and again generate interest savings.
Board have any questions?
Just a comment, I'm all in favor of Kingsley's offer.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the resolution.
A motion has been made by Linda
A second.
and a second by Benamalo to approve item 6E that has already been read. Any discussions? Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Thank you, Fred. You're up again. 6F, approval agreement for purchase of attendance credits, netting chapter 48 funding.
Yes, if you will allow the approval for the agreement of the purchase of attendance credit in chapter 48, we had a similar situation back in 2018-2019. This is TEA notifying us that, property values has shot up, and 23-24, we're experiencing the same thing, so this will allow Dr. Gutierrez to sign off on the agreement, and it will have no financial impact.
Any questions on the board?
Mr. President, I move to approve the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits.
Motion has been made to approve item 6F. Ms. Cindy Jimenez, do we hear a second? Second by Benamalo. Any discussions? Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Item 6G, adoption of order setting the tax rate for 2023, which does not exceed the known new revenue tax rate.
Yes, as previously discussed in our public meeting, our new combined tax rate will be $1.11, which is generating a savings for the taxpayer. And again, if the taxpayer has a home of $150,000, they can expect to see $200 savings. So for every $100,000, you can expect to see $133 savings.
No questions on the board? Do we hear a motion to accept item 6G?
Mr. President, I move to accept item 6G, adoption of order setting the tax rate for 2023.
Motion has been made by Carl Jenkins. Do we hear a second? Second by Benamalo. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Move on to item 6H, consideration and possible approval of purchase through the Texas 20 Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $2,966,500.
Yes, from the previous year, we have seen an increase of $820,000, and that is due to inflation and other factors. I have itemized our vendors that we use from that co-op, mainly our child nutrition department, to get paper goods, dairy products, bread and tortilla, and food. There has been a change in the milk and bread and tortilla vendor. Bread and tortilla is now Brothers, and dairy is now Dairy Farmers.
Word on the street is that the milk is really good. People tell me. They're very happy with it.
Oh, I was gonna ask you to repeat that. They're happy with it.
Yes, I said word on the street is that they like the milk.
And the kids enjoy the jokes on the milk carton.
Yes, there's jokes on the milk cartons.
It's a big plus. And these costs are just due to conditions and
Inflation,
environment,
yeah.
Yeah, most of it's food costs from what I can tell.
Correct.
Mr. President, I move for approval of purchases through the Texas 20 Purchasing Cooperative for a total cost of $2,966,500.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made to approve item 6H by Linda Duncan and second by Cindy Jimenez. Any discussions? Any
Milk does the
questions?
body good, they say.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passed 6-0. Item 6I, adopt a resolution for the assignment of fund balance.
Yes, these assignments of fund balance are rollover from prior years. And this includes the COVID-19 funding reserve of $5 million, as well as the QSAP payment, which is 7th of 15 for $665,000. This will leave us with an unaudited estimated fund balance of $29 million, and we are required to have 25% of our operating expenses, which is $16 million. So if you take the difference, we're very healthy of $13 million in health fund balance.
Board, any questions? Do I hear a motion to accept item 6I, adopt a resolution for the assignment of fund balance?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Cindy Jimenez. Do I hear a second? Was motion to accept 6I, was made by Cindy Jimenez, second by Denise Quinn. Any discussions? Any discussion?
I
All
just
in
want to
favor,
say,
raise-
we read a lot in the paper about how so many districts are struggling. So we're very blessed, and, y'all have done a really wonderful job. The fact that we have such a strong reserves is really quite outstanding, so appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you, Tim.
All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Thank you, Doctor.
Good evening, Board President Garrett, Dr. Gutierrez, and trustees. As you know, as a governmental entity, specifically a Texas public school district, under the Public Information Act, when the district receives a PIA request, that starts a ticking clock. Thank you, it's like- It starts a ticking clock, and in essence, the district is obligated to provide a written response to the requester within 10 business days of receiving that PIA request. And forever and a day, that business days were designated as days that the district was open. So weekends, state holidays, federal holidays, certain state and federal holidays, as well as the 20 or so days that we are closed during spring break, Thanksgiving break, and Christmas break were designated non-business days. However, with the passage of House Bill 3033, the legislators said those are no longer considered non-business days. So the days that the district is closed for anything besides Saturday, Sunday, and certain state and federal holidays are no longer non-business days. So while the legislature gave us that under a stroke of kindness, they looked back and said, well, some of the PIOs aren't really that bad. We're going to cut them a little break, and we're going to give school boards the opportunity to designate 10 days during those what are now business days as non-business days. So they're giving us 10 days back, and basically we have those proposed 10 non-business days in items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Essentially that covers and gives us a buffer and gives us some time. For example, if someone were to submit a PIA request right before, let's say that Friday before we break on Christmas break, the first 4 days of that Christmas break, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that would be considered the non-business days. So that would give us a little bit of time. Same thing happens for spring break, and same thing happens for Thanksgiving. Essentially, we're getting 3 days back to give us some buffer. In other words, let's say that request that came in on Friday before Christmas break, very voluminous. It would require Tony and Steve and I to come in during our Christmas break and sit down and crank it out in order to meet that 10-day threshold. That gives us some time to where we can enjoy our time off and not have to come in and see each other. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
I just have a quick question. On average, how long does it take to fulfill a PIA request?
Ms. Thomas Jimenez, it depends.
It just depends on the-
It depends on the request, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And how quickly we can get it together. Some of them we can turn around. If we've got the information, we're going to turn around and provide it same day or next day. And sometimes it involves working with other departments to pull quite a bit of information. And in those cases, we usually can cover some of our labor and copy costs.
Mr. President, I move for the designation of non-business days for Public Information Act PIA requests.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made by Liz Duncan to approve 6J and second by Earl Jenkins. Any further discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed.
Thank you.
6-0. Thank you.
And I think this is just another hardship that's being put on schools. If you all can recall a few years ago, when we had some administrators roll in a cart, an example of a PIA, I mean, that's an example where you certainly need the time. This is really gonna put a hardship, not on all PIAs, but some are very voluminous, that it could potentially mean that staff will have to come in on a holiday. And so I just want to make sure that awareness is out there, that this could potentially present a hardship for staff members.
And would we have to pay them overtime?
It depends on who the staff member is that's gathering the documentation. And know that sometimes there are individuals who intentionally will ask for information on a Friday before a holiday. And I think that this is going to possibly incentivize some who will take advantage of it. Most PAAs don't, and there are good intentions, but we know that there are some instances where the intentions are not good.
We'll move on to item 6L, possible action to extend superintendent hiring authority for certified personnel during the fall of 2023, and Cindy Moreno will do the presentation.
Good evening, President Guerra, Dr. Gutierrez, Board of Trustees. We're asking that Dr. Gutierrez's current hiring authority be extended through December 31st of 2023. As you know, we continue to have issues finding qualified staff, and when we do find them, it's like finding gold, and we want to get a contract in their hand as soon as possible and get them on our payroll as quickly as possible. So currently in our board policy BC, the superintendent has the sole ability to make the recommendations, but the board still has final authority of those contractual personnel. So with the issues that we're having, we're asking that his authority be extended through December, with the possible future consideration of this being a permanent change.
Board, any questions?
What we would do is, if there's an administrative recommendation, we still want to bring those, but we're also seeing that there's a lot of competition and a shortage of people who even want to pursue administration. And so time is certainly of the essence here in almost all of the circumstances nowadays.
Mr. President, I move to extend the superintendent hiring authority for certified personnel during the fall of 2023.
Second.
Motion has been made by Cindy Jimenez and second by Linda Duncan to approve item 6L. Any discussions? Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0. Thank you, Cindy. Now we'll move along to item 6M, nominate candidate for the Guadalupe County Appraisal District Board of Directors. And I am going to nominate, unless someone else has another person that they want to nominate, Ben Amador to be member of the board. Anyone, any more nominations?
I second that.
That motion has been made by Alejandro Guerra, second by Denise, to nominate candidate for the Guadalupe County Appraisal District Board of Directors, Ben Amador. Any discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed 6-0.
I just want to say thank you, Mr. Amador. How many years has it been now? 1 more year. Thank you.
So now we'll move on to item number 7, board comments and requests.
I have a comment, or announcement. You know, I told y'all back in January that I was considering leaving the board, and so just want to put you on notice, let y'all know that sometime during the month of September, you'll be getting a resignation letter from me. So, you knew it was coming.
I also heard that no is acceptable. I have a quick question. With our new website design, schools now have the ability to update their sites on their own. Is there someone in charge at each campus to keep out that information? Because I see the middle schools, that there's a lot more information on the Barnes side than hasn't been updated since the first of school. And I'm just wondering if there's a time frame to get the same information on for both schools.
Yes, there is a webmaster at each campus. You'll soon start seeing additional updates. You'll soon start to see photos of administrators and teacher teams and departments. But yeah, you're going to see a difference at campuses. We're going to try to be as consistent as possible. That's something that we have to continue to work through. This is really the first full year that we have. But you'll start seeing progress as we progress through the school year.
And I noticed as well that the list of teachers are up to date, and I think that's the first time in many years that that's been up at all. I mean, for it to be up there that early made me very happy, so appreciate it.
And just to follow up on Ms. Jimenez's announcement, I'm going to make a statement, and this will be posted tomorrow. Residents of Seguin ISD District 3 who are interested in serving on the school board must email a letter of interest to pnramirez@seguin.k12.texastx.us between August the 30th and September 29th at 5 p.m. Trustees will review all submissions on October the 10th and conduct interviews of selected candidates on October 17th. Ideally, the new District 3 trustee will be appointed at the October 24th regular school board meeting. Any board member have any more comments?
I guess no isn't acceptable.
If there are no further comments, do I move to item 6-8 to adjourn the meeting? Do I hear a motion? Motion has been made by Ben Amador and second by Jenkins to adjourn the meeting. It is 10:09. All in favor, raise your